Wales has hitherto had a Christian cultural heritage, and Christianity is a sophisticated religion. There are a number of passages in the Gospel stories that highlight the distinctive nature of Christianity. Firstly, from John chapter 13, verse 34.
"A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another."
Christianity acknowledges that each one of us is born in the image of God. Secondly, from John chapter 14, verse 6.
"I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me."
As written by Iolo Morganwg in the Gorsedd prayer, which is proclaimed at the Eisteddfod every year.
"Grant, God, thy protection, and in protection reason, and in reason light, and in light truth, and in truth justice, and in justice love, and in love the love of God, and in the love of God Gwynfyd, God and all goodness."
Jesus Christ represents the divine Logos, or universal reason, the light of the world. In Christianity, truth is sacred and identity is not. The influence of Greek philosophy on Christianity is evident in a passage of scripture within the Gospel of Mark where, in between two stories of the healings of blind men, Christ rejects the desire to impose our will on others.
Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets. But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns."
Christ rejects the idea that we are more virtuous than others who belong to a different group.
"Teacher," said John, "we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we told him to stop because he was not one of us." "Do not stop him," Jesus said. "For no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me. For whoever is not against us is for us. Truly, I tell you, anyone who gives you a cup of water in my name because you belong to the Messiah will certainly not lose their reward."
Christ rejects the conviction that the sacrifice of ourselves for our faith makes us more worthy than others.
Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right hand and the other at your left in your glory." "You don't know what you're asking," Jesus said. "Can you drink the cup I drink, or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?" "We can," they answered. Jesus said to them, "You will drink the cup I drink, and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared."
This is the theological basis of our freedom, which has hitherto been regarded as sacred in Western society. We are one body in Christ. This is our cultural heritage. Christianity is being attacked by postmodern ideas originating in academia, where there is no such thing as objective truth, just different narratives that either support or subvert structural oppression. Father Robert Barron explains.
One of the principal marks, I think, of postmodernism and critical theory is a deep skepticism in regard to any truth claims, except their own, by the way. I mean, that's all. That argument goes back to Plato and Augustine. Whenever you take a radically skeptical position, well, what about your own theorizing? But well, hang on. I think they take a cue here from Nietzsche's perspectivalism, that we never get a grasp of the way things are, but only our limited perspective on them. So they consistently pull back the curtain on truth claims to reveal the power plays, that are actually going on. I'll come back to that. But I think the inspiration for much of this is in maybe the patron saint of critical theory, namely Jacques Derrida. His densely complex texts, famously unreadable, but they function as a kind of scripture for postmodernism. Derrida, as you know, is famous for the deconstructionist approach. Now, what does he mean? Well, he deconstructs what he calls the logocentric approach of classical philosophy, which is to say, logos, language, words, can get us in touch with reality. Think of Aquinas, the correspondence of mind to reality mediated by language. It gives us access to the way things are. Derrida deconstructs that kind of logocentrism. And he says famously in his French, Il n'y a pas de hors texte. There's nothing outside the text. I've got a text, and in classical thought, this text will get me in touch with the way things are. It'll get me in touch with the truth. But for Derrida, il n'y a pas de hors texte. There's nothing outside the text. Rather, what you have is an endless play of what he calls différence, difference. This word is not like that word, and this word relates to another one which is not like that one. And I stay permanently within the context of the text. Meaning always deferred, and hence his famous play on words. Différence, the difference of words, leads to différence, meaning deferral of meaning. I never know what things really are. It's always open-ended. Does that sound familiar? It's in the common rhetoric of even teenagers today, right? It's become the default position of most young people. There's no such thing as a real grasp of truth, but only an endless play of opinion, perspective, point of view, différence and différence, always deferring meaning. I heard Derrida at a conference once. Someone asked him, how would you define deconstruction? And he answered in his French. He said, deconstruction means, viens, oui, come, yes, yes. It sounds nice, but what does he mean? He means, look, I don't, this isn't the final answer here. This is not the truth, but there's always something new that can come, something fresh, some new way of configuring a text, some new way of thinking about it. Viens, oui. Permanent deferral of meaning and truth. That's a basic insight of Derrida. And what was once sort of whispered in the, recherché heights of the French Academy has come now to be, as I say, the default position. Who am I? What's the purpose of my life? What gender am I? Viens, oui. Come on, I'll think of it in a fresh way. Don't be tied to old perspectives. Be open, right? Here's something that when you read the woke theorists today, the comically absurd position that even math and science, even basic mathematical statements, 2 + 2 = 4. No, that's an expression of white supremacy. That's an expression, do you think I'm joking? I mean, that's exactly what they'll say, that math and science, even in these fundamental ways, are just plays of power, because you can never say that something is true. Yeah, we, always a new perspective.
In Wales, children are taught that white Europeans oppress those with a colonial ancestry, as it states in the article Reimagining a Decolonised Anti-Racist Curriculum Within Initial Teacher Education in a Welsh University. Empire explains our particular brand of racism. The Welsh Government are committed to pushing an anti-racist action plan where white people are told that they are racist and are expected in their day-to-day lives to undermine structural oppression. As the person who coined the term anti-racism, Ibram X Kendi explains.
Europeans are simply a different breed of human. They are socialized to be aggressive people. They're taught to live by the credo, survival of the fittest. They are raised to be racist.
To label an entire group of people as a different breed is a way to dehumanize them. To be anti-racist is to be anti-Christian. And yet, anti-racism is being pushed in Wales. In their introduction to an anti-racist Wales, the Welsh Government include a quote, not from Martin Luther King, a Christian Baptist minister, but from the Black Panthers, a Marxist-Leninist group.
Seize the time. If you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem.
The motto of the Muslim Brotherhood is,
Islam is the solution.
Islam is completely different to Christianity. Its founder, Muhammad, was illiterate and yet claimed to receive messages from the angel Gabriel. Its followers hold that Islam is not a corruption of the Judeo-Christian tradition, but a continuation of it. In truth, Islam has taken the Jesus Christ of the Gospel, denuded him of all spiritual and theological significance, then repackaged the desiccated husk as a prophet of God and the forerunner of Muhammad, who, for Muslims, is the ultimate role model. In Islam, Muslims are believers, and those who don't follow Islam are the kafir. Greek philosophy has had no influence on Islam. Muslims are taught that they are better than the kafir, as it states in the Quran.
O ye who believe, take not the Jews and the Christians for your friends and protectors. They are but friends and protectors to each other, and he amongst you that turns to them for friendship is of them. Verily, Allah guideth not a people unjust. You will surely find the most intense of the people in animosity towards the believers to be the Jews and those who associate others with Allah. And you'll find the nearest of them in affection to the believers those who say, we are Christians. That is because among them are priests and monks, and because they are not arrogant. So when they were insolent about that which they had been forbidden, we said to them, be apes, despised. And mention when your Lord declared that he would surely continue to send upon them until the day of resurrection those who would afflict them with the worst torment. Indeed, your Lord is swift in penalty, but indeed he is forgiving and merciful. Fight against those who do not believe in Allah or in the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what Allah and his messenger have made unlawful, and who do not adopt the religion of truth, that is, Islam, from those who are given the scripture. Fight until they give the jizya willingly, while they are humbled.
Europe was forged from the remnants of Christendom that survived the brutal Islamic conquests of the 7th and 8th centuries. Islam was designed to be spread by the sword. Sheikh Assim Al Hakeem explains.
The other type of jihad is the one that everyone trying to hide. And it's called Jihad Al-Talab. And this means that the jihad of pursuing, running after. And this jihad was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. But this jihad cannot be accomplished, cannot take place unless the state of the Muslims is strong. If you don't have a strong Muslim country, who can they pursue or attack? No, stay where you are. Just try to fix yourself, enrich your people with Islamic knowledge and Iman, then you can go. And what is the reason behind such jihad? Number one, to call them to Islam. It is for da'wah. The jihad is only for da'wah. That is why when Muslims go and conquer the adjacent country, what do? We kill them all? No. The Prophet says, the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they accept it, leave them. Khalas, they're Muslims. We go. We don't want your country. We don't want your land. We don't want your wealth. If they refuse, then tell them Allah obliged upon you to pay taxation, jizya. Stay kafir as you wish, no problem. But you have to give us a percentage. And this, if they refuse, then we have to fight. And if we fight you, then we capture you, you become our slaves, and we take your land, and you take where, because you refuse, I give you two good options.
In a talk, Sheikh Haitham Al-Haddad explains that democracy is a kafir system, and Muslims must seek power through democratic means before the kafir system can be overthrown and the caliphate can be established. It is the religious duty of every Muslim to spread Islam through da'wah, which is an invitation, and when that is not taken up, through jihad, which is through violence. The narrative that Europeans are raised to be racist is extremely helpful to Islamists who can portray themselves as victims of structural oppression whilst simultaneously pushing da'wah and jihad. A tool in the Islamic war in the West is the term Islamophobia, which means irrational fear of Islam. It's not clear how concern about Islamist violence is an irrational fear. Nevertheless, the all-party parliamentary group on British Muslims, which included the current Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, produced a definition of Islamophobia which is endorsed by Race Alliance Wales and Cardiff City Council.
Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness.
One of those expressions of Islam is, of course, jihad. The Al-Qaeda training manual was found on the laptop of Axel Ruda Cabana, the young man born in Cardiff who stabbed to death 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport. The manual states,
"In the name of Allah, the merciful and compassionate, to those champions who avowed the truth day and night, and wrote with their blood and sufferings these phrases. The confrontation that we are calling for with the apostate regimes does not know Socratic debates, Platonic ideals, nor Aristotelian diplomacy, but it knows the dialogue of bullets, the ideals of assassination, bombing, and destruction, and the diplomacy of the cannon and machine gun. Islamic governments have never and will never be established through peaceful solutions and cooperative councils. They are established, as they always have been, by pen and gun, by word and bullet, by tongue and teeth."
As stated within the Hamas Charter,
The day that enemies usurp part of Muslim land, jihad becomes the individual duty of every Muslim. In the face of the Jews' usurpation of Palestine, it is compulsory that the banner of jihad be raised. To do this requires the diffusion of Islamic consciousness among the masses, both on the regional, Arab, and Islamic levels. It is necessary to instill the spirit of jihad in the heart of the nation so that they would confront the enemies and join the ranks of the fighters. It is necessary that scientists, educators and teachers, information and media people, as well as the educated masses, especially the youth and sheikhs of the Islamic movements, should take part in the operation of awakening the masses. It is important that basic changes be made in the school curriculum to cleanse it of the traces of ideological invasion that affected it as a result of the Orientalists and missionaries who infiltrated the region following the defeat of the Crusaders at the hands of Salah al-Din, Saladin. The Crusaders realized that it was impossible to defeat the Muslims without first having ideological invasion paved the way by upsetting their thoughts, disfiguring their heritage, and violating their ideals. Only then could they invade with soldiers. This, in turn, paved the way for the imperialistic invasion that made Allenby declare on entering Jerusalem. Only now have the Crusades ended. General Guru stood at Salah al-Din's grave and said, "We have returned, O Salah al-Din." Imperialism has helped towards the strengthening of ideological invasion, deepening, as still does, its roots. All this has paved the way towards the loss of Palestine. It is necessary to instill in the minds of the Muslim generations that the Palestinian problem is a religious problem and should be dealt with on this basis. Palestine contains Islamic holy sites. In it, there is Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is bound to the great mosque in Mecca in an inseparable bond, as long as heaven and earth speak of Isra and Miraj. The bond of one day, for the sake of Allah, is better than the world and whatever there is on it. The place of one's whip in paradise is far better than the world and whatever there is on it. A worshipper's coming and going in the service of Allah is better than the world and whatever there is on it. I swear by the holder of Muhammad's soul that I would like to invade and be killed for the sake of Allah, then invade and be killed, and then invade again and be killed.
Influential broadcaster and Guardian columnist Mehdi Hasan explains that what separates the kafir from the believer is that in Islam the end never justifies the means. The believer lives as a human. The kafir live as animals.
In Islam, the ends do not justify the means. This idea is totally alien to Islam. In Islam, what is halal, what is haram. We do not bend our law, our morality for our short-term aims. Never. And we never lose the moral high ground. If we know anything of Shia al-Muhammad, as Shia al-Ali, as Shia al-Hasan, as Shia al-Hussein, we know that keeping the moral high ground is key. Once we lose the moral high ground, we are no different from the rest of the non-Muslims, from the rest of those human beings who live their lives as animals, bending any rule to fulfill any desire. Once we do that, we are lost.
On October the 7th, 2023, Hamas terrorists invaded Israel and raped, tortured and massacred young people who were enjoying a music festival. They also massacred people at Kibbutzim near the Gaza Strip. Animal was also the epithet used to describe some of the victims.
as the situation began to escalate, the only people that were there dealing with security were local police as well as the event security.
עצרנו, ואחרי כמה דקות התחלנו לשמוע קריאות ואזהרות שיש מחבלים, צעקות מחבל, מחבל, מחבל. וקיבלנו הנחיות, כולם קיבלו הנחיות מהשוטרים, פשוט לרוץ ולהסתתר בשטח, באופן רגילי לא להיכנס לרכב.
هات سكينة بس هات سكينة هات سكينة هات سكينة هات سكينة هات أنا صور بالله عليك أنا بالله عليك أنا الله أكبر.
Why kill Thai nationals? So to me, the fighters on the ground were in such a level of bloodlust that they were just going on a killing spree and they didn't really think much about who they were targeting. And this is essentially what terrorism is. The application of extremely shocking levels of violence against non-combatants.
None of the bodies were purely killed. All of them had severe signs of abuse and severe signs of torture.
Burnt bodies. I can't even tell if it's a man or a woman, if it's a child or an adult. Burnt to ashes. Rape. Women were raped. Even the elderly, even very young, were raped. Entire families that were murdered together.
There have been increasing reports being surfaced in terms of the sexual violence against women that were taking place during the 7th October attacks.
You just see my little girl there and she's bleeding in different places and she's barefoot. She's in her pajamas, you know, and then gray sweatpants, and the pants look dirty.
For many Muslims, October the 7th was a triumph.
الذي رأيت في 7 أكتوبر هو معجزة تخطيطية يجب أن تدرس في أرقى الجامعات لأن تخطيط شيء غير عادي وبتنسيق غير عادي. فالجماعة قاموا بما يطلب منهم وزيادة وكونهم صمدوا بالنسبة لي هذا هو انتصار. الآن بعض الناس يبكي إن والله غزة دمرت وكذا، صحيح، بس انت يعني أولا هذا ليس على أيدينا بأيدينا، انتم احسبوها بالنسبة والتناسب. لما يكون عندك شعب من 1,000,000 ويموت منهم 10,000 انت قاعد تتكلم عن 1 بال1000، صح؟ لكن لما يكون عندك 100 مليون ويروح منهم 10,000 نسبة تصبح لا شيء.
As the massacre was unfolding, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, an organisation supported by current Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, applied for police approval for a national demonstration, not against Hamas, but against Israel. On that same day, chair of Plaid Cymru BNE and member of Race Alliance Wales steering group, Abyd Quinn-Aziz, tweeted,
"At least we will die with our heads held high."
Hamas leader Ghazi Ahmad explained how the international condemnation of Israel justified the October the 7th massacre.
You know what is the benefit of October 7 now? Now win the award now. If you look to the General Assembly yesterday, when about 194 people opened their eyes and looked to the atrocity, to brutality of Israel, and all of them, they condemned Israel. We waited for this moment for 77 years in order to open their eyes to say that there is occupation, there is suffering of the Palestinian people, and we should end this occupation. I think this is a golden moment for the world to change the history. I think that now the world is a change. The history is a change now.
Sir, you were just saying that as a result of October 7th, you are seeing millions of people marching in the streets, you are seeing countries recognize Palestine as a state, you are seeing legitimacy for your people. And I'm asking you whether the price that Palestinian people have paid so far was worth it.
I know the price is so high, but I'm asking again, what is the option?
It's worth
what is the option left to the Palestinians? You know what? We waited for a peaceful process, for a peaceful means since 1993, since Oslo Agreement.
Palestinians have rejected the two-state solution many times since 1948, notably at Camp David in 2000. Former US President Bill Clinton explains.
I understand why young Palestinian and Arab Americans in Michigan think too many people have died. I get that. But if you lived in one of those kibbutzim in Israel, right next to Gaza, where the people there were the most pro-friendship with Palestine, most pro-two-state solution of any of the Israeli communities, were the ones right next to Gaza. And Hamas butchered them. And so then the people who criticize it are essentially saying, yeah, but look how many people you've killed in Ritalin. So how many is enough for you to kill to punish them for the terrible things they did? That all sounds nice until you realize, what would you do if it was your family and you hadn't done anything but support a homeland for the Palestinians, and one day they come for you and slaughter the people in your village? You would say, well, you'll have to forgive me, I'm not keeping score that way. It isn't how many we've had to kill, because Hamas makes sure that they're shielded by civilians. They'll force you to kill civilians if you want to defend yourself. And look, I worked on this hard. And the only time Yasser Arafat didn't tell me the truth was when he promised me he was going to accept the peace deal that we had worked out, which would have given the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank and 4% of Israel, and they got to choose where the 4% of Israel was. So they would have the effect of the same land of all the West Bank. They would have a capital in East Jerusalem. They would have I can hardly talk about this.
In November 2023, Al-Manar Mosque in Cardiff posted a video on their Facebook account. The video showed an image of the same paragliders that were used by Hamas fighters in their rape, torture and massacre of young people at the Nova Music Festival. With the image of the paraglider visible, the narrator concluded with the following.
He is Allah, the owner and the creator of the earth, and the one who gives to whom he wills from his good servants to conquer in his precious name. Maybe the Crusaders forgot about this, just like their counterparts tend to forget. Those do not like us when we badmouth them, but Hatton hid the traces of their ancestors after 90 years in the dust of history. Their Hatton, so not that far from us, with Allah willing.
The reference to Hattin is a reference to the Battle of Hattin that took place in July 1187 between the Crusader states of the Levant and the forces of Saladin. The Muslim forces captured or killed the vast majority of the Crusader forces, removing their capability to wage war. An inquiry by the Charity Commission reported that the chair of trustees of Al-Manar Mosque deemed that the audio of the video aligned with the charity's objectives and aims. Now in a Minute is a highly influential Muslim-run media company. Now in a Minute media have nothing to say about October the 7th, but in May 2023 they highlighted the appointment of Cardiff's first Muslim mayor, Councillor Bablin Molik, who arrived from Bangladesh in the 1980s. Councillor Molik was involved in strengthening the motion tabled to recognise and adopt a definition of Islamophobia used by Cardiff City Council, thereby making it potentially impossible to criticise the Islamic call to jihad, which I'm sure Councillor Molik knows very well. Now in a Minute media have also highlighted the work of Shazia Ali.
Decolonisation is always a violent phenomenon.
They'd highlighted the work of Nizar Dahan, who gives his justification for the Hamas actions on October the 7th. Now in a Minute media have also publicised the efforts of Cardiff students to free Palestine from the river to the sea.
We've seen in a lot of unis how they've cut their ties because of their students protesting. We are the movement and we will stay here until we get what we want.
10, 20 years from now, these are the actions that you'll be looking back on, and you will want to be on the right side of history, and that is where we are.
Get involved wherever you can and be on the right side of history, because this is something that we need to do now.
Change does come in small steps, and I feel like don't let yourself be pushed away from doing something small just because you feel like it won't make a change, because it will.
On their website, Cardiff University publicised the Cardiff University Islamic Society, a group that is affiliated with FOSIS, the Federation of Student Islamic Societies. FOSIS have created a booklet, Remembering the Nakba, 77 years on, in which it states,
The Nakba refers to the mass expulsion of Palestinians in 1948 by Zionists. Over 750,000 Palestinians were expelled and over 500 villages destroyed. Over 78% of the land was stolen, eradicating over 500 villages and towns. Until today, the Palestinians have remained displaced, occupied, and oppressed. We are the generation that must not forget. Hold remembrance circles in your societies, organize educational campaigns, revive the names of villages erased from the map, and tell the stories of our elders who walked into exile with only keys and Qurans in their hands. But most importantly, challenge the frameworks that ask us to prove our humanity by surrendering our values and deed. The path to decolonizing the mind and liberation is not only through slogans or protests, but through a deep recentering of Islam as the axis of our political and ethical lives.
FOSIS make no mention of the 850,000 Jews who were expelled from Arab countries after 1948. They make no reference to the 133 Jews who were killed by Arabs in the riots of 1929, or the killing of 67 Jews in the Hebron massacre of the same year. They make no reference to the many Muslims who are living peaceably in Israel, nor to the Israeli Declaration of Independence, the guaranteed equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race or sex. They make no mention that many of those 750,000 Palestinians were not expelled, but chose to leave under orders from their religious leaders. FOSIS make no reference to the fact that Israel unilaterally disengaged from the Gaza Strip in 2005 by dismantling all 21 Israeli settlements there. FOSIS make no reference to the many two-state solution proposals that have been made and rejected by Palestinians. Islamists are taking advantage of the postmodern idea that there is no such thing as objective truth, just different narratives that either cement or subvert structural oppression. As it states in the article on the Race Council Cymru website, 5 years on, honouring George Floyd and the movement for racial justice. Hope lives in our communities. It lives in the young people rewriting the narrative. The Federation of Student Islamic Societies are rewriting the narrative. In the worldview of FOSIS, the only acceptable colonisation is Islamic colonisation. The BBC are also rewriting the narrative.
BBC have come under fire and criticism because they released a documentary about, it was called Surviving a War Zone, and it follows a child in Gaza. Turns out that the people involved in narrating it, including the child, had direct links to Hamas. Yes, this child, who was meant to just be some innocent Gazan, was the son of a Hamas minister. The BBC now are coming under scrutiny, attack. The leader of the opposition in the UK has called for an inquiry into the BBC, but it's just gone a lot worse. See, up until now, the BBC are saying, we didn't know their connections to Hamas. Sure. But let's just say and indulge them and say that's true. Well then, if you want to say it's just an accidental mistake, how do they explain the fact that they have clearly, deliberately mistranslated words of these Gazans? They've changed references of Jews and translated the Arabic to being about Israelis. And they've mistranslated the word jihad to being about fighting and resistance. Have a watch. This is just so clear of the BBC's direct complicity to whitewash the anti-Semitism and genocidal hatred of the Jews that lies at the core of this conflict. Have a watch.
بس أكدت لنا هاي الفيديوهات إنه هو ما كانش متخبي تحت الأرض، إنه بالعكس هو بقاوم بجاهد ضد اليهود. بس. Okay, so now
that's how they translated it in the video. Now this is the actual translation. So here she says, but the video shows that he was. Let's just get it up. The video shows that he was fighting and resisting Israeli forces. Now let's watch here.
بس أكدت لنا هاي الفيديوهات إنه هو ما كانش متخبي تحت الأرض، إنه بالعكس هو بقاوم بجاهد ضد اليهود.
So here in this clip you can see that she's referring to fighting against the Jews and jihad. So let's be clear. This now represents direct complicity of the BBC with Hamas.
Wales has hitherto had a Christian cultural heritage where truth has been regarded as being sacred and identity is not.
A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another.
With the advent of postmodern ideas, that has changed. All that exists now are different narratives that either subvert or cement structural oppression, and one narrative is being pushed much more strongly than others. The cultural values of this country are changing.
O Allah, help the Muslims in Palestine and in all places around the world. O Allah, help and support the Muslims to gain victory over your enemy and theirs. O Allah, revealer of the book, swift to account, defeat the groups of those who reject faith. O Allah, defeat and shake them.
You cannot treat the believers and the disbelievers the same, never. So when we say to have bara', we're talking about to hate, not to love, obviously, to not support, to distance ourselves, to mistrust, to not have friendship, to not accompany, to disrespect, and to not help. So obviously you'll see it's the complete opposite of having the wala. And as we mentioned, the wala is only for the believers, for the Muslims, and the bara is for the disbelievers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, how can you equate the Muslim with the criminals? And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they're talking about the criminals, talking about who? The kuffar, the disbelievers. As we mentioned last week, the criminals. Disbelieving in Allah is a crime. Committing shirk with Allah is a crime. That's why I said every single kafir is a criminal.
Jihad is part of our religion. It's a concept in our religion, so I'm not going to be apologetic.
Jihad for the sake of Allah. You accept Islam, you pay jizya, it's war.
The solution, very simple. Jihad fi sabilillah. We don't fear anyone but Allah. We don't fear the United Nations, British government. We don't give a damn. We only fear Allah. Jihad fi sabilillah.
And the disbelievers that may surround that community, the Quran has legislated something known as al-jihad, which we would refer to more specifically al-jihad al-qitali, the armed struggle or armed warfare against those elements.
What do you think the future is, though, for jihad? Because
well, I just said the Prophet ﷺ, I believe he said in the hadith that al-jihad madin ila yawm al-qiyamah, it's continuous until the day of judgment.
Islam is seeking to have a ministry of defense, and the ministry of defense is carrying out the jihad activities. This is natural, and this should be accepted as it is accepted in any other law.
We are the messengers of the messenger. We are the representative of this deen of Islam. We have to be the solution. The future is ours. Every ideal nightmare of a Muslim Europe will come true. They can be as mad as they want. I don't care. America will be a Muslim country. Russia will be a Muslim country. Islam will enter every house. We have to be a part of that change. We have to be a part of that da'wah. We have to be a part of those ghuraba who stand firm on our aqidah and our practice and our deen and never ever apologize. We're unapologetic. Never ever compromise. We're uncompromising.
In the Quran, we grow up with two things. First, you should give your life to God. Second, you should defeat Jews and Christians.
Reason why you have to fight them is because they are Jews and Christians. You should fight those empires around you, or those hukumat around you, which are Jew or Christian, until they give the jizya. That's fine. That we already know Islam allows. And then the howness of that is in the hadith. The three options that they're given: either you give the jizya, or you do this, or you do that. We're not apologetic about that point. That is truth.
The purpose of Islam is to establish a global Islamic state, a caliphate, and impose Sharia on everybody on earth. That's it. That's the end of the story. There's no other purpose.
Important to understand what our role is here, right? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, right? That I am placing on earth a khalifa, a caretaker.
That I am creating on this earth a khalifa.
We will do everything possible that the world order is under the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I want to see the whole world led by a just khalifa.
This religion has been sent to dominate, to wipe out, to take out every other religion, to eclipse it, to be superior to it, to have the people leave every religion and to accept Islam. And if that requires fighting to achieve it, then it requires fighting to achieve it. Because the greatest purpose for which jihad was legislated is to make the word of Allah the highest and the word of those who disbelieve the lowest.
The worshippers of the cross, they say that Isa is the son of Allah. Jesus is the son of Allah. And then after that, what do they say? That they are repeating the sayings of the disbelievers before them. Allah said, Qatalahumullahu. Allah said, may Allah fight them. May Allah kill them. That's what Allah said. How are they deluded? How are they deluded? That's what Allah said. And I know this is going to make some people cringe. Some people that claim to be Muslim, is going to make them cringe. Huh? What are you going to say about community cohesion now? After you hear that verse, how can you tell me about community cohesion and interfaith and prevent? How are you going to talk to me about that after you hear that verse? And Allah said, Allah going to kill them.